Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Hopinions, and we're not on our own this week, are we, mate?
No, we've been joined by our guests.
We have. We are joined by the guys from Men Beerhaving Badly. Welcome, chaps.
Hello.
Hi guys, you alright?
Thanks for having us.
For the benefit of our listeners, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Tom.
Hello, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Mark. I
And there
didn't
you
know
go.
if you wanted more of an introduction.
Mark just pointed to me and I'm like, oh great.
Welcome to this week's University Challenge.
Probably going to put a disclaimer out now that this is the second podcast we've recorded tonight,
Yeah.
having previously recorded your show with you.
Yes.
Doing a guest hours segment with you. So welcome to Hopinions. You've probably guessed by now that we've decided to take you on a bit of an exploration through dark beers because we know how much Ashley loves them. So as I was doing the intro, Martin was quietly opening the beers in the background.
Everyone wants to hear a can being opened.
They
don't
do. What's the first beer we've got tonight, mate?
So the first beer we've got, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with anyway, is a Beavertown Black Betty. So it's a black IPA, and it comes in at a really reasonable 7.4%.
Great place to start.
Where else would you start
Yeah.
a podcast?
Yeah. So let's get stuck into this straight away.
Okay, so
Yes,
cheers.
yes.
Welcome,
Cheers,
guys.
chaps. Welcome
Cheers.
to Hopinions.
Thank you.
Cheers. This is not one I've had from Beavertown before, personally.
No, I don't think it's
think
one
I
I'd
had
ever
either.
go for.
No.
Is it because it's got the word black?
Being honest.
It says Black Betty, Black
silly.
IPA.
It's just all those words that set me on edge.
I mean, probably just say, I mean, this has come out straight of the ice bucket as well. So it's probably one which will benefit from a couple of minutes warming up as well.
I think so.
But I still think there's loads of flavour coming off that.
Straight away, you get that pine on the nose for me that I tend to associate with black IPAs. That gives way to some hints of citrus in there. Hardly any roasted flavours for me. So pretty much bordering on what I'd term as being the perfect black IPA.
Yeah. I mean, we had this at our recent work beer tasting, and it went down a storm.
Yeah. It's a
It
great.
confused people as well because it's not what they expect from a black beer.
It is, yeah. I think it's with a black IPA, you walk that fine line between hoppy stout, don't you,
Yeah.
or black IPA. Guys, any initial
What do
thoughts?
Ashley?
There's a lot of sniffing going on there, and not a lot of tasting.
And I think it's because what normally happens for me with a beer as dark as this, and it's sort of the colour of a Pepsi Max or something like that, and there's normally that initial smell and then a bit of a sigh, and it's sort of here we go. But I'm not getting that. I'm actually not getting that, and I think it's like Steve said, that there's not that sort of roasted, dark coffee type scent that's coming out of it, and I think that's what normally sets me into that mindset of, right, we're going for a dark beer then, so let's just get it down and try and find some positives. But actually, because it doesn't have that, it sort of intrigues me, I think, a little bit.
Have you tasted it yet?
I haven't. But we'll go for that. Intrigues me.
It hasn't intrigued you enough to have a sup.
Really building yourself
Still
up.
worries me.
While you're doing that, guys, what do you think?
Well,
Yeah, there's a nice sweetness to that, I think, for me personally. I'm a fan of the dark beers anyway, as it is, as you are, Tom,
Yeah.
I'm sure, as well. So, I'm really enjoying that. It's a nice nose. There is a surprising kind of lightness to it, I'm finding. Going down really well for me.
yeah, I think I've not had a lot of black IPAs, but I had one the other day in a local and brewery in Nottingham. Can't remember what it was, and that was really nice. I just, like I say, it's a bit strange when you got that. You expect those sort of real darker flavours, but you've got that sort of lighter hoppiness. Actually, I really like the marriage between that sort of bit more on the dark side, a bit of the light side, sort of.
Yeah.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah, and
I think.
I've really liked that sort of those two flavours
Well,
together.
we had
So
that,
having this is.
We had that with the Siren Americano, didn't we? On
Yeah.
one of our last episodes, and I think because it was that kind of darker IPA with the coffee, they really built it up with the coffee, and I wasn't a particularly big fan of that because the coffee was a bit too overwhelming for me. I think this is a perfectly good balance, though.
The Americano was still a blonde beer, wasn't it? with
Yeah.
coffee notes, wasn't it? Because we had that one, didn't we?
It was one of their barista
Series of 4, wasn't it?
Yeah. I must admit, I smiled. I had a wry smile when I was listening to that episode, and you said you were doing that. I was like, this will be interesting to see what they think of this.
For me, when it comes to coffee, I prefer the kind of subtle hints that you get in your stouts and your porters and such. But that for me was a bit too overwhelming in that flavour. But this for me is really hitting the spot. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay, so the third wheel.
That is my nickname. No, actually, I think it's there is more sort of roasted flavour than there is aroma, but it isn't overpowering. I think the combination of that with how light it feels in the mouth, and I don't know how much of that is down to the temperature. It is very cold, and whether that's dulling some of those darker flavours a little bit. It'd be interesting to see how that warms, but it feels light and refreshing and sort of clean, but does have some of those bitter after notes from that roasted flavour. So I think actually that's, for me, that's quite an interesting halfway house between the sort of beers that I can get on board with and some of the stuff that still terrifies me. But,
there's still time for that. Don't worry.
Yeah, this is only beer number 1.
Yeah. So guys, tell us. I suppose tell us a little bit about your journey into beer. Obviously, you're a year or so into the podcast now, coming up for a year.
9 months, May 17th.
Yeah. What made you decide to start a podcast?
We were sitting outside on the Freemasons, weren't we?
Yeah.
I think we just started together. I think each of us had been exploring beers a bit more, and with Market Harborough starting to become more, so with the opening of Beer House, which is just got different beers on almost every week, which is got plenty to try. Freemasons bringing in that was sort of an old pub that got revamped and was bringing lots of good beers. I think we just were sitting outside one day and just thought, we're kind of talking about these beers, why not?
Yeah.
It was a joke at first, wasn't it? Why don't we do a podcast?
Yeah.
And then it was
Well,
kind of like,
I really
all right,
wanted
we'll
to
try
do-
it, and then
I really wanted to do a podcast of sorts with the guys. I kind of thought over loads of ideas of different podcasts we could try. I think initially we were going to go for a carvery podcast. That was our first idea.
we got into
And then
to go for carveries a lot, didn't we? So
there's only so
Sunday
much
roast.
you can really do with a carvery podcast.
I might actually look up to see how many carbon podcasts there are there now.
Yeah,
I'm guessing less than one.
it's been very niche, I think that was. But that kind of thankfully got put to the back burner. But yeah, as Tom said, we were sitting in the Freemasons beer garden one day, and we were just like, I think we should probably start a podcast on this. So I think, that's
it was with
great.
the expectation that nobody would listen to it.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't know. I think there seems to be some kind of innocent charm to three guys who really clearly don't really know what they're talking about.
There was definitely a naivety on my part, thinking, there's probably only about 4 or 5 beer podcasts out there. Not knowing that there's actually quite a few more.
Although, to be fair to you guys, I mean, just in the last year to 18 months, there has been quite a big increase in beer podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah.
But from a listener point of view for your podcast, what's been nice is it's been a recording of your journey.
Yeah.
So even
absolutely.
though the podcast is only 9 months old, I would argue the journey's longer than the 9 months.
Not much longer.
As in,
really,
your starting point for your first few shows,
Yeah.
were very much probably been fixed for a number of years with the type of beers you were having.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
pretty broad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did
You know,
go broad first couple of
So
episodes.
I would say that's what I've really enjoyed about it is those steps you've been taking all the way through, and then there seemed to be a point where you sort of did a bit of a leap.
Yeah.
to you suddenly discovered there were beers over 6%. It's like, oh, hello.
Yeah.
And then you also then discovered that they weren't necessarily to be too scared of them, whereas you probably focused on the ABV to start off with. Like,
I think we did.
God,
yeah,
it's that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, that's a discussion I think we had in one of our most recent episodes, was actually that you can have beers that are double figures, sort of 11-12%, that have just got sweet flavours and nice flavours that mask all of that unnecessary alcohol, bitterness and sweetness. And contrast those to things that are sort of 6.5, 7 that just taste like alcohol.
Yeah.
So actually finding those beers that are strong, but they're strong for a reason, and they've got huge amounts of flavour. And so it's just pointing out that strong beers aren't bad beers. There are good strong beers and there are bad strong beers.
Yeah.
There are good weak beers and there are bad weak beers. So
It's amazing that it was the 6 and 7%ers that kind of helped us coin the term Bico.
Bico.
Yeah.
And
which-
on the last Bico episode, you were nowhere near.
nowhere near.
6 or
Pretty much
7%.
double.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah.
double. And it just keeps continuing to grow. For anyone who doesn't know what Bico means, it means blow your cock off.
Yeah.
So, that's really doubled for us now. I think in terms of what we see as a Bico, as a really strong beer.
Yeah.
And that's just all been part of the journey.
Yeah, I think our journey has been helped massively by the number of other beer podcasts out there. I think when we first sort of realised how many out there, we maybe thought, oh, actually, should we view these as competition, or should we be trying to do something different? But then I think we quickly realised that actually we can only do what we can do. We are the guys that we are. There's no point us trying to be experts or anything like that, because we'll get found out immediately. So we can only do what we can do, and guys like yourselves, Miles at North East Sipping Forecast, who've actually taken the time to say, you've not quite got that right when you have a look at this, or try this beer if you like, that sort of thing, has just been invaluable.
Absolutely,
to actually sort of get in touch with people and learn and develop, which I think just would not have been possible without social media and all sorts of things. So it's just been amazing, and the sort of the speed at which we're learning things and getting in touch with people on Twitter and having conversations that a year ago would have been totally impossible.
Is it starting to take over your lives?
A little bit, yeah.
You said that in a way that kind of suggests to me that...
Not in a negative way.
It's taken over mine.
Yeah.
It's not a negative way at all. But I mean, because we've already said, so we've done a show with these guys, and one of the things I said is that once you learn a bit more, you want to know a bit more, then you find out there's a whole load more to learn.
Yeah.
Isn't there? Whether that be styles, different breweries, whatever it might be, even just going to different places.
Well, I think we realised with it, sort of 2 months into the podcast, we realised that sours and gozers were a thing. I mean, we didn't even know they existed, and now they're my...
Are sours and gozers a thing?
Well, they are, but I still try and avoid them.
You see, but now they're my absolute favourite thing in the world. I didn't know they existed 6 months ago.
That would have happened? I mean,
No, I think we always assumed that you sort of have pale ales, dark beers, some sort of brown water beers in the middle, and that was
what
it.
we call cask.
Yeah.
don't line them up for him.
Has anyone here had Jaipur on cask?
Yes, but not at the brewery before he says it.
So I
Taking
think
all my lines from me now.
it's just been a sort of it's exactly like you say, Martin. The more we've sort of branched to learn, the more we realise that we're a million miles away from knowing everything, and that's been really exciting actually, because it's just given us more avenues. And at the end of every episode, it's a case of, well, what are we doing next time? And that beer was really nice, so let's do a whole episode around black IPAs. Let's just focus on that, and let's do this and let's do these. So it's just been incredible. It's just a lot of fun.
Exactly. That's the key thing, is the fact that we started this purely because we wanted an excuse to drink together. Really.
Yeah, it was.
And it's just been so fun. We've been friends for a long time now. I think me and Ashley have been friends for 17 years now. Yeah.
Play hide and well.
And Tom came in somewhere. But it's just the fact that we really just wanted an excuse to kind of get together, have a few good drinks, have a really good laugh together, and it's grown into something. I think I gave us 2 episodes when we started. I genuinely thought, we'll do a couple of episodes of this, and then we'll just go back to just drinking occasionally and
not recording it.
not recording it. But we've just enjoyed it that much. I think we're all of the opinion that while it's still fun, just keep plugging on.
It's just surreal.
It's incredible fun, and surreal is.
I think it's been easier than we thought it was. I think because I think it's maybe thinking about the content is a bit difficult, but actually you're just having a chat with your mates about beer, and it just happens to be recorded most of the time. We're not too scripty, are we?
It's not forced. It's never forced.
Not too forced. So that's what I really like
that
about
comes
it.
across. That comes across as three mates chatting, and every now and again you remember to talk about the beer kind of thing. Which is what we've often done. It's like, shit, we should mention the beer.
Sometimes we actually forget about what we're drinking, which is a lovely segue back to the beer. Drinking. Now, Ashley, you were the first to finish your glass there. Was that out of desperation to get rid of the beer, or was you really enjoying it?
It certainly wasn't desperation to get rid, because as soon as I get rid, there's always the possibility that it's going to get topped up with something else.
That's a definite.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's possibility.
So there was no desperation to get rid. No, I think I actually found it really drinkable. I didn't really let it warm. Obviously, the last thing I said about it was that it'd be interesting to see how it warms, but I didn't really give it a chance to.
No, lots of flavours still come out.
There was,
even
even
without it warming
very
up.
cold. Yeah.
Even in that small amount of time that's
Yeah.
had to warm, there's more flavours coming out of that
Yeah,
for me.
but I think it's again, I know I said it out quite early about the 7.4. I think it's very light. The Beavertown
Yeah,
Black Betty
certainly
is
light,
surprisingly light for 7.4%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about everyone's gateway black beer, Guinness. No one would ever describe a pint of Guinness as light.
No, absolutely.
No?
Will they? And that's what, 4.1?
Yeah.
This is another 3.3 on top of that.
Well, it's bordering on what we call dangerous, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it,
Oh yeah, I think
yeah.
this is.
Yeah.
You could smash a few of those.
Oh, this is bottom end sessionable for me.
Bottom end session.
7.4. Cannibal strength.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, for me, it's this is the first time I've had this for a while, but it was a beer that I definitely wanted to feature on tonight's show, and more for the fact that I probably just want to applaud Beavertown for still having a black IPA in their core range.
Is there any other brewery you'd like to have a
There's
black
maybe
IPA?
one brewery that I'd like to have a
Go
black
on,
IPA.
say it.
Magic Rock. Hashtag bring back Magic 8.
We should get on this campaign, guys. I think.
that is a beer that definitely needs to come back in a can for a second run.
Tall boy.
No, I want it 330 mils.
You don't want a tall boy?
No.
So you love it, but not enough for a tall boy?
It depends. It would all come down to the artwork.
Yeah,
Because-
do have good
Because
hour.
Magic 8 Ball, that original artwork of the purple and silver
I think that would work on a
on
440.
black,
Or
I think
500.
they could work their magic with that.
Oh, I really want a magic rock.
Oh,
Oh, what a
that-
fantastic segue into our next beer. So,
Oh yes.
if you could pass me the water, please.
Of course you can.
So
I feel we're
professionals-
going to need this.
yeah. So we've actually we're dropping back down in
Which you
the
may be surprised
ABV
about.
here. So we decided because we've spoiler clearly gone for a lot of stouts this evening. A black IPA of that standard wouldn't really work in the middle of a series of stouts. It would just break up the drinking. So we decided to go with that first, and then so the first stout we're going to introduce you to, and this is an absolute cracker for me. This is Magic Rock's Dark Art. So it's a surreal stout. It's got no adjuncts in it, so there's no coffee, there's no chocolate, there's no cacao nibs, there's no vanilla, there's nothing. This is just a stout. So, and I know that we've had one listener in particular who I know listens to both of the shows, Paul at UNRCD, was like, well, recommend me a beer. I didn't, because I didn't want to spoil what we were going to be drinking tonight with you guys. So for me, this is what I would term as an absolute gateway stout. It's going to be... Well, I'm not going to tell you what it's
while
going
I'm
to be.
opening, why don't you talk a bit more?
I'm still trying to cleanse my glass.
Cleanse your glass. Can't believe you're going to give them a description first.
Ooh.
No, so while we're opening this, let's get on to some news. So we've got a couple of news items this week that we wanted to do probably as a bit of a group discussion with the guys as well. So first one, and hoping you guys have seen this in the last couple of weeks, was the news that Stone Brewing are deciding to take on Molson Coors, and they're going to sue them over the name of a beer. So Molson Coors have recently pulled a fast one, naming they've got a beer called Keystone.
Yeah, so
Keystone Light.
It's a brand. I think it's actually a brand name, isn't it, Keystone?
Yeah.
And it's basically a Molson Coors lager, and they've fairly much from the branding dropped the word key.
Yes, so now it literally says Stone Light. Stone have obviously picked up on this. They put Greg Koch, who's the owner of Stone, put a video out explaining that in terms of when it comes to beer, Stone Brewing are beer, not Molson.
Yep.
Coors, when it comes to the phrase Stone. We've both watched the video.
Yep.
Have you seen?
I haven't
I've seen the news, but I haven't watched the video.
No.
I've
I
seen
can't
that they
say
were
I've seen the
suing.
news, to be honest.
No.
But as long as I actually heard.
1 out of 3. It's not bad.
Yeah. So go on, Ashley, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I think it's great that they're taking a stand. If I'm completely honest, because I think it would be really easy for them to say, you know, one of the big boys has done this. Likelihood of us winning against their legal team, maybe it's pretty slim. So we'll just sort of roll over and take it. But actually, by taking a stand, I think you get a lot more public weight behind you. I think you get people on your side to say, actually, yeah, fair play to you. And to be honest, it makes me more likely to go out and find some Stone beers and show my support that way by just buying and drinking their beers. Because it's, I think it seems to me like Molson Coors know exactly what they're doing. I don't think there's a decision they've taken lightly to drop Key from the thing. I think that they know the sort of connotations that are there with it. And so I think, I fully support Stone taking some action to actually stand up and say, we don't think this is right.
This is what we were saying, because we chatted about this. We were saying you could look at it in two ways. That in terms of your general consumer who's walking into a supermarket, they're seeing the word Stone on a can, and they're possibly thinking it's a Stone beer, so they're buying it. So maybe they are being a little bit misled by the branding. However, you cross over into that, somebody that knows just a little bit about beer, when you're looking for Stone beers, you're not just looking for the name, you're also looking for what is their distinctive branding in the gargoyle as well, and if that's not appearing. So we were saying that we feel as though it's very much Molson Coors are targeting that casual consumer.
It's that term disruption, isn't it? Which gets bandied a lot about in the corporate world these days, especially like IT and fintechs, that kind of stuff. I think Molson Coors have just been a bit naughty, to coin a phrase. Yeah, they're just disrupting it. But I do agree. I think my own gut feelings are yes, I think Stone are right to stand up for it, but I also think they're making the most of it.
Yeah, bit of a marketing exercise for them.
I think Coulson Moores have, to coin a football phrase, given them a bit of an open goal. To be honest, they all they have to do is take a pot shot at it. They've made it easy for them.
Yeah.
Although Stone are a massive craft brewer, whatever the term may or may not be. Compared to Molson Coors, they're small.
Yeah, very much so.
The money behind Molson Coors is vastly different to Stone, so they're still going to get a lot of support behind them. And Ashley's already said, just off the back of this, he would go, okay, I'm going to go and buy some Stone.
Yep.
M&S train beers.
Before
you go home on the 2 o'clock train, it will set you up. It will set you up for work nicely tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Make sure you check the can on date on the bottom of every can.
Yeah, especially in M&S.
Yeah, so I think for me it is a case of when you see those sort of perceived injustices, without looking unbelievably deeply into it. Like I say, I saw that it was happening, but I didn't really go right into the nuts and bolts of it. But it felt to me like that sort of the underdog was being a bit downtrodden, and so naturally I sort of got behind them in the same way was it the Tiny Rebel, that had their branding. Watch. Yeah.
I mean, that was
changed that based on one complaint and those sorts of things. And
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's one complaint.
One complaint, but then again, that was almost a marketing opportunity for Tiny Rebel to say, look how ridiculous this decision is. Also, here are our beers. The stuff we've got on.
Although they did have to spend £30,000 on their legal, and they've probably got less in the coffers. But I, all in all, I think Stone are right to sue them, but why not market it as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pay the legal fees and nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so before we go on to the next item of news, Dark Arts.
Cheers. I mean, did anyone else get the aroma before we even did that?
Yeah.
Though?
It's a lot stronger. Yeah, a lot stronger than roast.
Strong roasty smell.
Really
Lovely.
So is this more of the aroma that you start thinking about actually going, oh, hold on.
This is we're entering into the territory where I start to panic.
Is this where you start
ever
going,
so slightly?
You've got a bead on there, mate.
Yeah, exactly. It's when I start, looking for my nearest exit just to make sure. But no, I don't know. And again, I mean, this one hasn't been chilled, so maybe again it's a case of the distinction between one that, because obviously the Beavertown was sat during the whole recording of our guest stage.
Yeah,
so that's been really chilled.
They've been on the ice for over an hour and a half.
Whereas this one really hasn't. So it'd be interesting to see the sort of difference that makes.
Comes down to style, because obviously Beavertown, for all intents and purposes, is an IPA, so you're going to want to drink that more
on the chilled side.
On the chilled side, whereas a stout you're generally going to want to drink at cellar temperature or room temperature.
Yeah.
So we've tried to balance that out a little bit.
But Tom and Mark as dark beer fans,
on the flip side of Ashley, as soon as I got that aroma, I just got incredibly excited about having this. It's all right. Don't laugh at that.
No, just making sure you're not getting too excited.
No, I think that's absolutely wonderful. Perfect amount of roasted feel to that. lovely aftertaste as well. Nice little kick at the back of the throat. I've been a big fan. I'm a big fan of Magic Rock, to be fair. And some of the stuff that we've had there, particularly the Salty Kiss, is a big favourite of ours, of all three.
Which
of
again
ours.
is a goes, which you've referenced already.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, this is ticking all the boxes for me in terms of a stout. Absolutely wonderful stuff.
Steve, do they do this on cask?
Yes,
Have you had it on cask?
probably.
Having been to the tap room more than I have.
Yeah, I think I've probably seen it in cask in places like Craft Beer Co. As well. Probably had this on cask.
Oh, maybe I've had it then.
Yeah.
Because in my head I'm thinking all those aromas and flavours just in cask would be just a little bit fuller as well.
Yeah. This for me is one of those things that I really like dark arts, and every time I revisit it as beer, I actually forget how good it is.
I mean, you're loving it, Tom, by the looks of it.
I am, yeah.
I mean, we haven't let you speak, so all you did was drink it.
I can see why it's a bit of a gateway, because it's again from the lovely aroma, sort of that roastiness, and then the taste is just I find it quite light still, and just very drinkable. Sort of a good level of sort of that roastiness and a bit of sweetness. That sort of sweetness taking it sort of through to the back and sort of mellows out a bit. It's just lovely. Yeah, I just like you say, with it having no additives and stuff, it just feels just like a really just good, well made.
Yeah. You're not chewing your way through that.
There's
definitely
no
not.
You could just keep drinking. No.
And you don't get a lot of those these days either, do you? You don't get a lot of stouts that haven't got some sort of something added to it. Yeah. This is just a stout.
Yeah.
This is what you can do with dark malts and some sensible hop selection and some really good brewing.
Yeah.
And the balance.
Yeah.
No, this is fabulous. This almost beats the Egyptian cream from Nem Valley, but not quite.
Desert Island beer.
I had to name drop there just because I love it so much. But no, fabulous.
Yeah,
Love
really
it.
good.
Okay, so let's dive back into the news because while you were talking cask, which you can't seem to help yourself about.
One of us has to be positive about it, Steve.
That's true. So we had news that Siren have committed to continuing cask production, and they've signed a new agreement with the Draft House. So this sees at least one of Siren's flagship beers, or the suspended in range, will be on cask at each of the Draft House sites throughout 2018 and 2019. So that's quite a big step up for Siren in terms of their cask offering.
Yeah, I'm pleased.
Brilliant. Well, great. I'm glad, hopefully all of our listeners will enjoy the fact that
That says that at the bottom of the article, didn't it? Martin is pleased.
Yeah. When asked.
It's Siren, it's cask. Draft House tends to be in and around London, and fortunately for me, when I go to visit my parents in Milton Keynes as well. So I know that if I go to Milton Keynes to visit my parents, I can go to Draft House and get Siren and cask.
Yeah.
So to go back to what I said a minute ago, I'm pleased.
Okay, fantastic. Do you guys see much Siren on cask?
We really need to go to Draft House.
Well,
They've
we've
been very-
once
they've been very-
somewhere, yeah.
you've been- yeah,
but
I haven't been, yeah.
We've yet to sort of revisit. I think we've had plenty of Siren on the podcast, haven't we?
Yeah, we've
Obviously
had the
not
Yulu.
cask,
Had the Yulu and then the Americano,
but
yeah.
we've loved pretty much everything that's been on there. So
Yeah.
I think we'd lap up anything on cask now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
it's very
I
exciting.
Didn't
think
you have
it's
a-
great
didn't you
news
have
for Siren.
Yeah.
You know, but although for me it would seem as though, because I've always seen Siren as what seems to be almost a core beer in Craft Beer Co. Outlets.
Siren does appear in the craft beer.
So I'm wondering whether they've changed the contract there from being available in Craft
Could
Beer
be,
Co.
because they're all quite close together in
Draft
places
Houses.
in the city anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's very good news. I think Siren are again one of those breweries we've spoken about before who don't actually make much noise.
And we've featured them a lot as
Yeah.
well.
We only feature them because they've got great beers.
Yeah.
Well, we featured them, a couple of times already now.
I suppose it's ironic that Siren doesn't make much noise.
Oh, do you know what? I never thought about that.
Someone had to pick up on that.
Yeah, I thought about that. But yeah, they're not like, they only really say stuff when they're doing things. They don't make proclamations or anything like that. It's like, here's our beers, or our tap room's now open, and this kind of stuff. It's all about the beer.
Yeah. So they don't feel as though they need to make a lot of noise
No.
about their beers.
No.
As opposed to the next news story.
Oh, what could this be?
So this is a Punk IPA.
Never heard of that.
Now available in spoons as a core beer.
Ask someone else before I say I'm pleased.
Are you pleased?
Yeah.
Yeah? Why not? Well, guys?
See,
Visit Spoons much?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've known
Yeah.
Punk IPA to be in Spoons for quite a while now. I thought in our Spoons in Harborough.
On
well,
tap.
the last
This
few-
is on tap.
Oh, on
No,
tap.
it's always in
Bottles.
cans.
Sorry, yeah.
So
Yeah.
bottles
Right.
and cans.
So
have
there are
had-
now
Okay.
taps in all Spoons selling Punk IPA.
I'm happy with that. To be honest, I've always enjoyed a Punk IPA. You know,
Had one last time.
whatever,
Pretty safe
whatever
bet,
you
isn't
can
it?
say, whatever your feelings are about Brewdog, I think the Punk IPA is a solid drink. To be honest,
Can't
so
disagree on
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I've got to say I'm fairly happy with it, and from listening to some of the feedback that's been going around on Twitter in the last week since this news come out.
You've been listening to Twitter.
Well, I've been listening to it, yeah.
You can do audio clips on there.
There are people saying that they've been in Spoons as well, and when they've ordered it, they've actually been asked if they want it in a stemmed or a straight glass as well, which is quite a step for Spoons to
Yeah.
actually be.
You can imagine them reading them off the back of their hand.
Yeah.
Do you like it in? What does that say?
But generally, if I'm asked how I want my resin, it's normally in my face. is my response.
What, 2 cans, Steve Austin style.
Two cans into the same hole, please.
Smashing them together in the
I
bar.
think it's great news.
Yeah.
It's reliable.
I think it is.
Yeah.
We do,
Exactly that.
you know, we've all said it. We know what we're going to get from it. And if you're in there, if you go to a Spoons with a group of people, you don't necessarily want to go to the bar and check everything.
Yep.
You know Punk IPA. I'll have a pint of Punk, please.
I suppose, do you wonder if that's a requirement from Brewdog for that question to be asked, whether it's coming? Because obviously you were talking the last time about them having 95% qualified Cicerones working within. So I wonder if that's sort of part of their
It
sort
could
of
be.
branding to say,
It
actually,
could
we want to
be.
make sure that wherever we are,
Yeah.
it's being served in the way the customer
Yeah.
wants
Or
it. So
you
that's
at least
actually a requirement for them to
Give the
ask.
customer perceived choice.
Yeah,
But Spoons, for a long time since they've had their craft offering, have always given you a can with a stemmed glass.
Or one of those more, like with the resin, you
Yeah.
get that sort of bulbous brandy glass, don't you?
Yeah. Very rarely goes into that though.
Is that just wasting too much time?
Let's be honest. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
have the intermediary?
Yeah. Okay, so while we've been finishing off that, all of the glasses are empty. So I'm taking it Dark Arts is a bit of a winner.
Massive
for me.
fan.
Big
fan.
Massive fan of that.
yeah.
Mad.
I mean, I feel like I'm speaking directly to Paul now because I feel like we're sort of kindred spirits on this journey against dark beers. But
Journey again.
Against dark beers.
Again.
Oh, that's very strong.
Yeah, it's
actually.
very strong language.
But I completely agree that if you were going to find sort of entry into the darker world, that's not a bad place to start at all. I think it for me, it almost had quite a refreshing carbonation to it as well. So it felt lighter than it was. I think on the flip side to the Beavertown, I think with the Beavertown, I didn't smell much roasted flavour, but tasted more. Whereas on this one, I smelt a lot more of it, and maybe it was a bit more subtle in terms of actual taste, which I really liked about it. And so I think, yeah, it'd probably take me a while to get through a whole can or a couple of cans, but I think by the end of it, my opinion would have changed on darker beers. I think that's an entry level.
Okay,
dark
stop
beer.
the podcast there.
Yeah, job done. Let's go on to the next beer then. I think before we
Go on then.
move on. To
Out of Steve's magic
I'm going to
bag.
dip into my magic bag, and this is whereas so far we've been drinking fairly available beers.
We're moving on to less available.
This one is less available. I'm gonna let you open this one because this is kind of your doing.
Oh, yeah.
That I've ended up with a few of these.
So this is the Guinness, the 1798 limited edition double extra stout. As far as I'm aware, this is only available at Dublin Airport. And I think when we went to the beer festival in Dublin at Alltech last year, I mentioned to you on the way through, have a little look, see if they've got any more, because I'd been to Dublin with my mates a few months earlier.
And I picked up one box that I was going to buy, and then you pointed out that I could get 2 boxes for about £3 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was an
And you
offer
went,
on.
okay.
Yeah, so I took 2 of those. So while you open that beast, because this is it's come in a box,
Yep.
and it's
It's
cork
a-
and cage as well.
I mean, look, it's a very nice box.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
presentation-wise, tops. And you wouldn't expect anything less from Guinness.
No, you wouldn't.
It looks like a fine whiskey, doesn't it? You know, the sort of
Yeah.
presentation
Yeah.
box and all that sort of stuff. It looks
So
lovely.
the Glenfiddich, what was the one you had at Christmas?
Yeah, the Glenfiddich IPA.
Yeah.
Oh, what the...
It's
was
like
it
the
that-
experimental
Yeah.
series,
what-
yeah.
Did we try something similar?
We tried the IPA that had been brewed in the whiskey barrel. that we weren't allowed to talk about.
Yeah,
Whereas
but you're
this
allowed-
was a whiskey in a IPA barrel.
Yeah.
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 Now
We-
it came in a
which
similar
is-
box. didn't
Oh
it?
yeah, it was lovely. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like your most Glenfiddich.
It's quite a satisfying sound.
That was a
lovely.
very
It's always a
satisfying
satisfying
sound, yeah.
Sounds like the still carbonation going.
It does. So as you're
Privilege,
pouring that, we'll get on to this week's question.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
So the first of the two opinions polls that we're going to feature on this week's show, this was simply about dark beers. And we asked the question, dark beers, heavenly or work of the devil? I'm just going to say up front, 11% of people are wrong. Which I'm guessing actually fits into
I
that
think I might
11%.
But just to
which
be
is-
clear, no bias there at all.
No, which is that they're the work of the devil. 89% of people said it was heavenly, 361 votes. I'm just going to go through a few of the comments that we've got here, because I think there's been some quite interesting ones that we might get into as well in terms of discussion. So first up, this is Andrew Sheldon at Tavare Fan Club. Not directly related to the poll, but at beer festivals, I've had so many badly described lighter coloured beers that I've made a point of only drinking beers labelled porter, stout or mild. Not foolproof and wouldn't be for everyone, but improved my festival experience hugely. I am with that guy.
I thought that was a brilliant comment.
Yeah, because at Camera beer festivals, I avoid light beers.
Most light
And will
beers
only go
at
for
Canada
dark
Beer
beers.
Festivals to me aren't what they should be. Definitely not as described.
Yeah,
I think that's a brilliant comment actually. I think that's actually quite on point.
I think it's bang on point. The beer's poured.
Yep.
So before we go into any more comments, let's get
Cheers.
into this.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, that's
Do you know what?
That's
That's
a lovely nose
On
on
the
that.
nose, that's benefited from
kind of
being held back for a year.
Because we had this was it about a year ago at Bottle Share?
Yeah, you bought it
bought
to-
one. No, you bought.
Did I bring it to Box
Yeah,
Share?
I've still got another
In
bottle.
that
in
case, it
myself.
must have been the April one. No, March or May then.
Well, we went in March.
No, we went in February last year.
Was it? Okay.
March then. This smells like it's benefiting from aging a little bit.
sort of a boozy, sweet.
That's
It's
that's
got
a
very-
far
it's
different
the-
nose
yeah.
than what we've.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's
nice.
it's almost
really
sort of
nice.
porty or
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of fortified wine
Yeah.
type. That's unlike anything I've
Yeah,
ever smelled
fortified
in a
wine was
beer
what I was kind
before.
of really picking up on that.
Wow, that's dead smooth
That's better.
as well. That's really aged. Now, a bit of a description on this because there's a label on the bottle, but so this is this luxuriant brew evokes chocolate, vanilla, and licorice. All the adjuncts that you normally get in a stout like this, with a hint of wood aroma. The sensory experience is compelled through the combination of malts and bitterness for sweet. Now, somewhere there is something about how they actually brewed this as well. So, tribute to the original Old Vat House No. 1 at St James's Gate Brewery in 1798 Guinness, brewed with Irish stout malt, crystal malt, and a very generous amount of roasted barley. Complex stouts uses Goldings hops for a subtle hoppiness and is fermented with Guinness yeast. It's then finished with English oak wood from the Old Vat House No. 1. So it's not been aged on anything other than oak.
I think the woodiness is coming through, which
Yeah.
I don't think we got a year ago.
Absolutely.
I don't remember thinking about that at all a year ago.
That licorice is really coming through for me. That's a really standout flavour for me.
It's got a massive nose on it.
Yeah,
yeah, huge
Compared to
Huge.
the flavour,
I actually think it's
it's
got a boozier
really
nose than it
soft.
is.
Yeah, the flavour is so soft
Yeah.
and smooth as you drink that.
It's really surprising, actually, isn't it? How sort of subtle and complex. It feels like there's sort of layers of things going on there. You sort of get these things in waves of different flavours, and the way it finishes is totally different to the way it starts,
Yeah.
which is totally different to the way it smells. So I
Yeah.
think it's
It's
really,
actually-
really interesting.
I think this has really gone up a notch in
Easily,
a year.
yeah,
We've had it
yeah.
because we were a bit. I thought it was nice, but it was like.
I was
oh.
very meh when,
Yeah.
when you bought it to Bottle Share. I
And
was
you
like,
thought, oh, Martin told me to buy 2 of these.
yeah, what am I going to do with those? So guys, you're not. 2 of you are fans of dark beer, and one of you not so much. What is it for you that makes you go for a dark beer?
I mean, originally there wouldn't have been something I'd have even gone anywhere near. Guinness was my first sort of venture into that, and I remember at the time just really not being a fan of it at all. This is probably when I was, just turned 18. Just not a big fan of it whatsoever. Since we started doing the podcast, we're trying to venture out into doing the different styles. And when we did that initial stout episode, I thought to myself, actually, these flavours are really clicking with me. These are really nice flavours coming through, especially with the chocolate, the kind of more chocolate oriented stuff that we were having. Really resonated with my taste buds. So just that kind of kicked it off for me. And then just going further down the line, and then I've said it already, but the Egyptian cream from Nem Valley. But that was a beer for me.
Getting paid every time you say
I wish.
If he is, he's not telling us.
But it's beers like that, and just stouts in general in that respect that were just really clicking with me, and I was becoming a really big fan of, and just more and more I've wanted to try more dark beers like that. And it's amazing the contrast between me and Ashley. Like,
well, it is dark and light. You two are polar opposites.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Straight in there with that one. But yeah, I mean, so what is it just really puts you off, Ashley?
I think it's probably sort of once bitten, twice shy. I think I just had a lot of bad ones. I think my first experience of dark beers were just sort of generic, strong for the sake of being strong, stouts and porters that sort of gave me that first impression that, well, this is what they're all like. Clearly, if I'm having a stout, it's all going to taste like this, and it's just going to be that sort of alcohol bitterness, and maybe you get a bit of coffee here and there. And it sort of coincided with a time in which I didn't really like coffee anyway. I've slowly weaned myself onto coffee through mochas and lattes and stuff like that, so I'm sort of acclimatising myself to that bitterness, and I think that's worked pretty well in terms of growing to like some of these dark beers. Add into the fact that some of the dark beers we've had recently have actually been good ones, as opposed to just any old rubbish that we could find,
And that's interesting, because I'm not a big fan of coffee at all, and I'm still not. I can't really warm myself to coffee in the slightest. But having that sort of flavour in the stouts, having a kind of subtle flavour of it, is actually really nice for that. The flavour really comes through nicely for me.
Yeah.
So whereas, as I said previously, when we had the Americano Siren, which has got the coffee in it, there was just a bit too much of the coffee flavour for me for me to really enjoy it. So
I think for me it's been about finding those ones that have got those flavours that they don't necessarily mask the stout characteristics, but they mellow it out and they round it out. So I mean, we were talking about the Yellow Belly before we started this recording, and that for me was sort of almost like an epiphany moment of, bloody hell, this is what dark beers can be, and that for me just hit every note of things that I wanted to. And the fact that it was a dark beer just passed me by, that it didn't matter at all that was a dark beer. Sort of getting those aromas of peanut butter and the sweetness of biscuit and all those sorts of things just absolutely blew my mind. So finding things like that start to open my eyes in the same way that when we very first started trying beers and doing that sort of things, finding something with a real strong citra hop was my first gateway into actually beers. Something going on with beers. I could move away from lagers and start getting onto sort of flat beers. So it's about finding those ones that have just got something about them that suggests that there's something to be explored and something I can sort of latch onto and try and get into.
And what about you, Tom?
For me, I think it's more of my taste has just matured, because I didn't really get into coffee until I was sort of 23, 24. And now I drink a fair bit at work. But things more like darker chocolate I never really got on with, but sort of now I sort of a bit like how I enjoy dark beers. I think sort of with that it's sort of in sort of small doses. I take my time over it rather than sort of obviously the lighter beers. And, appreciate you have session beers because you can just get them down.
Yeah.
Whereas darker beers, some of them aren't like that. But I think what I enjoy about dark beers is just that sort of you can really take your time over it. And I think as my taste has matured, sort of enjoying coffee more, and sort of those sort of darker tastes, I think I've just naturally just started enjoying it. And I certainly kind of, like I said about that I think it was the Americana one last week, where we sort of said how I quite liked it. I saw it like the end of almost a dessert beer type thing, like the end of a meal. So rather than having I liked it on Irish coffee, didn't I? Something like that.
Yeah.
And it just, for me, I just enjoy those sort of taking time over it. And dark beers I sort of stumbled upon. I didn't really, again, I think I just sort of thought, I won't like those. But as you sort of start getting into them, I just realised that, I feel like my taste has matured, and I just enjoy those darker notes now.
And I feel like that sort of after dinner beer type tag fits perfectly with this Guinness limited edition thing. I think splitting a big bottle like that between sort of 4 or 5 people, taking your time over it, having these sort of smaller little taster bits, getting that sort of porty type smell at the beginning, I think it is exactly how I'd want to get through this.
Did you ever imagine that's how you would drink beer in little tasting?
No, not at all.
No.
Did you ever imagine how that's how you drink Guinness?
No.
But incredible.
Yeah.
It's you're right. It's a sharer bottle. If you had a dessert wine, it would come in a 500 milliliter or 50 centilitre, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So this is bigger than that, but it's not quite the same ABV. I think it's got a lot of the same qualities as you guys have described as that, and like I said, it's really benefited from that year. I'm really pleased with that. Have you still got one left?
Yes, I've got another bottle of this at home, which I'm going to leave for a bit longer.
Yeah, I would say so, because I've got one as well. So now
Yeah.
I know what it's like a year on from when we last had it.
Yeah.
I'd leave it a little bit longer, I think.
Absolutely. So just picking up on some of that previous discussion, and in terms of some comments that we had as well, particularly in terms of dark beers as end of evening drink and after dinner drink. So we had from Guzzler at @lagging_boat. It's a proper session isn't a proper session without a big fat dirty imperial stout at the end of it. It's the law.
All capitals on it.
Yeah.
Question for you. Generally, do dark beers work better on cask? Most of the dark beers that spring to mind do, e.g. 5 Points Railroad Porter, Magic Rock Commons Ground, and that's from Miles Lambert of Sipping Forecast.
Yes, I love a dark beer on cask. I love a cask dark beer. I think it brings an extra level of depth to the beer, and it just gives it so much more body.
So not all cask beer is brown and flat then?
Well,
Come on. I need you to say it on the podcast.
well, dark cask beer, isn't it?
Okay, fine. I'm halfway there. Guys, what do you
There's
think?
just another positive for dark beers, just
And
It
cask.
is. It's all ticks in the boxes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of dark
I would
beers.
agree. I would agree. I think, especially with the sort of mid-range beers.
Yeah.
So between that 4 and 6%, I think on cask works really well. I mean, obviously, once we start going to your impy stouts, it's probably never going to be on cask anyway.
No, but when you get into that impy stout range, you're beginning to get a lot more body and a lot more thickness.
Yeah.
From a bottle anyway, which is what you guys were saying, particularly in terms of the yellow belly. That almost slops out of that bottle. It doesn't pour.
It glugs.
Yeah, because it's so thick.
What was that? I had a cask, really strong dark cask beer at Alltech last year, didn't I? Was it from Boyne?
Yes, where you went and then pitched up at their bar for about 3 or 4 hours while I explored all of the IPAs around the festival.
Yeah, and I just drank that.
Yeah.
It was very good though.
Yes.
It was quite strong. It was the only cask beer there, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not sure when it comes to when we get into impy stout territory. I'm not sure cask really adds a lot to it.
No, I'd agree.
But like you say, that mid-range, very, very much so.
So good point, Miles.
Yeah. Here's another one then. So just almost a flip side to that. So from Pete McCary at PJ McCary, porters and stouts can be summer beers. You just have to be willing to learn and open to change. What do you think about that one? I mean, I
was going to ask Ashley first.
Okay.
Bearing in mind that he's only just started, can you? So go back to the Black Betty.
Yeah.
Could you picture having that in the summer?
Actually, yes. I think there's a distinction. When I think of summer beers, I always think of things that you could just get through 3, 4, 5 in a row without really thinking about it. And that for me is always hoppy pale ales. It's always sort of something between 3.5 and 4, citra hop, and that's what I think of sort of smashable summer beers. But I think actually that there might be a place for this. There might be a place for this in the summer. You know, the Black Betty especially, because I think it's
What about a nice cold can of Dark Arts? Would you be?
Well, I've
reaching
not
for that in
tried
the
an
summer?
ice cold can of Dark Arts. So
That's true.
I would say if you were going to go for one out of those, the two. So this, I don't think it's really a summer beer
No.
No,
because of the really deep woody notes and the
Yeah.
fact that we're all comparing it to a dessert wine after dinner, that kind of thing. But the black IPA chilled would definitely work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I could certainly those two I could have in the summer.
Yeah.
Like I said, black IPA, both for me. I could.
Are you guys
completely
seasonal?
find it.
Are you
I
guys
just-
seasonal drinkers? Do you go with the colours?
I think we've kind of talked about it, but I don't think we've actually followed it through.
no,
have we?
we don't practice what we preach.
No.
Certainly not on the podcast.
Outside of the podcast, during the winter when you go to one of the pubs in Market Harbour, would you go for the more darker Ilka beers, or
No, we're still.
you still?
Irrespective of the time of year, I will go for the hoppiest pale I can find.
Or the most fruity saison
Or the
you
most
can
fruity,
find. Exactly.
Well, he's got half of your beers there, so.
I think I start with I think I found somewhat more in the winter. I've maybe started with a darker beer.
Yeah.
But whether I've kind of like, I can't think I've carried on with we're having a session with dark beers all the way through. But I think I feel like I've certainly the first few quality. I feel like I'm in the mood because you come in out the cold and you fancy something a bit darker. And
I think the big thing for us is the fact that we're 9 months into this journey now, and it's kind of fallen into the winter period, and we're still trying to kind of catch up with a lot of the lighter stuff, the paler stuff, and the kind of golden amber stuff. So we're kind of trying to pack the summer stuff in earlier than planned.
yeah, because we're just exploring those styles, aren't we? And we're
Yeah.
kind of not really caring what
Yeah,
time
I mean,
of year.
it was a coincidence that we got an NE IPA in my Beer 52 in December.
yeah.
If we'd have got one of those in June or something like that, then maybe we'd have done it in June, and maybe it would have worked better in June and stuff like that. So I think outside of the podcast, maybe we stick to seasonal stuff a bit better, apart from me.
When we get to the
stick to what
summer
I know.
this year, we're gonna smash those lighter ones. I think.
I mean, we've spoken about seasonal beers before. We're both quite seasonal, aren't we?
We are. I must admit, it gets to a certain point of the year and I start craving dark beers, and then consequently, when it gets to spring, I'm like, give me something light and hoppy now because I'm coming out of my hibernation. But equally, I will
When Steve
quite,
shaves his beard.
I will quite happily drink a nice cold stout or a cold porter in the middle of summer with a barbecue or something, because I think it just works.
I think it works really well. I think
So
it
well.
just has to be the right one.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. I mean, in terms of sessioning dark beers, that's a big ask. I mean, I went to Dark City last year and did an afternoon there, and I think I only managed 5 or 6 dark beers before I was beginning to crave something a little bit lighter.
So what did you have after that?
Cannibal. Obviously.
Of course, yeah.
What else would you have?
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's. I am a little bit of a seasonal creature. I have to admit that there's a point in the year where I start wanting dark, and then we'll continue that, and then I'll start wanting light again at the end of it.
So we've got any more thoughts on this beer before we go back to
I think
comments?
just the final one, and again from Paul at UNRCD, who's a listener
regular.
of both shows. So I voted the work of the devil. Not sure most are, but my problem with dark beers is that most of the ones I've tried always seem to have flavours I dislike, which is what you guys were just saying: coffee, dark chocolate, etc. I did enjoy the Beavertown heavy water, which was great, but generally I'm not ready for them.
Kindred spirit of yours, actually.
I think
Paul.
so. Yeah, I mean, part of the sort of the type is that you get those really rich dark flavours, and at no point should anyone try to brew a dark beer that tastes like a hoppy pale, because then you'd be going against the whole point of doing a dark beer. So, there has to be a point where you find what you like and stick to it. But I think there's certainly enough going on in some of the beers that we've had here, especially the Beavertown, to show that there are those sort of middle grounds. I think obviously that's the difficulty with these sort of polls, is that the maximum options you can have is 4, but you could probably go to 100 different poll options, rating from really, 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 really hate dark beers to really, really, really love them, and there'd still be people that say I'm sort of between those two. I'm not really any of those Hot 100 options.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to pick one or the other. But I think a lot of people probably just haven't found the dark beer that clicks for them, and that's the position I was in.
We've always we used to do a third option on polls, which was almost what we used to term as the stupid third option that allows people to not vote for one of the serious ones.
Yeah.
And then we stopped doing that because we wanted to push people down a route of it's yes or no. Occasionally we might do 3 or 4 options when there are 3 or 4 options to be given.
Also, you start to get some more comments, because if you give the third option, they don't have to give the comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go yes, no, or in between, then they can just tick in between and move on.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want someone to say something, it's usually the ones who are in between one or the other that start giving you all the comments, isn't it? So again, you know, we did have some really good comments. We haven't got time to read them all out.
We did, yeah. And in terms of the next poll that we're going to go on to, which kind of takes the beers onto the next level as well, which was we was asking, does barrel aging make a beer better? Now this upset quite a lot of people who were like, that's not really a straightforward question, and we need more detail to that. We still had nearly 340 people vote, and 53% of people said yes, barrel aging does make a beer better, and 47% said no. Now, before we go into that detail, shall I bring out the next beer from the bag of surprises?
Oh, go on then.
Are you guys ready?
Are we ready? Yeah.
So this is an Imperial Stout from Innis Gunn. It's called Vanishing Point. It's 11%, and it's been barrel aged for 200 days. So
I mean, it's
We
been
could
a
say
while.
200 years. Then it was all right.
yeah. So Innis Gunn
That would have been
recently
impressive.
have, to be fair, come in to quite a lot of shit about their barrel aging processes. In terms of what I can probably equate it to is a bag of wood chips dipped into their beer like a tea bag would be dipped into hot water.
Which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
Because Innis Gunn, when it first came out,
Was really good. The original Innis Gunn was really good. This, however, has been genuinely put in a barrel and aged. So it's not just been teabagged.
it's just...
This one.
Have you just said tea bags, haven't you?
That's something I expect Ashley to do. Come
But
on.
was it? Did this? The idea of this come out after they got a bit of flack for the way that they were aging, and I've sort of deliberately done some air
Speech
quotes
marks.
there. Yeah. You know, has this come out as a result of we got a bit of abuse for the way we were doing
I
it
think they wanted
before?
to go back to where they started,
Yeah.
which was actual barrel aging in terms. And as we've both said, the original Innis Gunn, when probably 7-8 years ago, was an incredible beer.
It was
And
fantastic.
there was nothing like it on the market at the time. The
And you
version
get it
of
in
it
Slug and
now
Necks as well.
that is just nowhere near that original.
It's a real shame.
Yeah, it is a shame, but hopefully this is taking them a little bit more back to their roots in terms of actually barrel aging a beer.
Yeah, for me, Innis Gunn were like the first ones, aside from sort of Guinness, like those darker beers with that, but that sort of with obviously had the rum barrel and the vanilla and those sort of slightly different flavours. And obviously the barrel aged. They were my first sort of beers that were barrel aged that I sort of went into, and I loved them. But then obviously when that sort of not had them for a while, maybe not directly because of sort of the stories that come out and stuff, but just not naturally, just not gone for them for some reason. But Innis Gunn certainly a while ago were a bit of an eye
Yeah, like I said,
in my beer
I
journey.
I discovered them through either Sainsbury's or Slug and Necks, and they were just available. It was something a bit different, but they were nice.
Yeah,
Really tasty beers.
Yeah, they were.
They were like it was like a oak barrel aged lager.
and it had lots of toffee and caramel notes to it as
had
well.
lots of depth to it.
Yeah,
And it's a real shame that, presumably because of the amount that they produce now, that they've gone to basically what happened to Chardonnay in the 90s and early 2000s, where they've just thrown oak chips at it.
yeah. But this, as I say, this one actually barrel aged. So
Cool.
cheers.
I mean, as soon as that was poured, like the glass was nowhere near my nose, and I was already picking up something. There was a really strong scent for me coming through.
Real biscuity on the nose.
Yeah.
That's the overriding thing for me, is biscuits.
There's lots of malts going on in that. Yeah.
Sweet malty, getting that for sure.
We had this discussion last time when we said that we got a biscuity kind of aroma to it. What sort of biscuit?
biscuit?
Are we
Yeah.
looking at?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I would say digestive. Digestive would be the closest one for me.
Yeah, because I'm picking up a little bit of chocolate in that scent as well. I think.
Oh, you can go chocolate digestive.
Chocolate
I mean, that's
Yeah.
really that's really soft on the mouthfeel.
Yeah,
as well.
that's really tasty. Actually.
Really balanced, and I would say there's that tastes nowhere near the 11% label that it's got.
Not at all.
It's got a bit of booziness, but it's nowhere near what you say of that.
I'd place that around a 6.5, 7 if it was just
I would say
combined.
8.
Yeah,
But 7 or 8, yeah. But no, yeah.
that's incredibly smooth. Like
I think it's really well. Again,
it feels like there's no
balanced.
kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, there hasn't got the boozy kick or afterburn at all,
No.
has it? 11% bourbon barrels. You'd expect a little bit more of that burn. There's nothing of that.
There's a hint of warmth at the end, but
Warmth,
there's no burn
No.
to it. Probably should say at this point we were sent this by Innis Gunn,
Were we?
so full disclosure.
Yeah. We were sent this and we shared it with other people.
It's a fairly limited edition as well. They didn't produce many of these bottles.
Oh, we feel
Why?
special now. don't we?
Why have we done this, Steve?
I don't know, because I didn't realise it was going to taste quite as good as this.
You've wasted it on us.
If I'm completely honest. But it is tasting great. But in terms of the barrel aging, let's get into some of the comments that we had. So as I say, first out, a lot of people said, well, it's the poll doesn't really tell us a lot. It's not a yes or no answer. So Paul Walker at Paulie Walks, not exactly a straightforward question, but if you think it's a beer that should be going into a barrel, then if you do it properly, the barrel-aged version should always be better. Justin Mason at 1970s Boy, a very vague question. Yeah, we know. It's kind of why we make them vague, is to get these comments. It depends on the beer and depends on what you mean by better. What it should do to some beer is add another dimension, another level of flavour, but whether that is better depends on your palate.
Yeah, and he wasn't the only person to say that either.
No, a lot.
Whether it's better is almost a point of view,
Yeah.
but it should definitely add something.
And there were a few people that said it would be interesting for you to do a beer and the barrel aged version of that beer. Now the only thing that I could find in my cellar that we could do was Yellow Belly and Yellow Belly Sunday. But those bottles weren't going to split between 5 of us, so we'll save that when it's just me and you.
Yay!
I'm sure we're going to try to split between 5.
I don't think that was going to happen.
I like the way he just said it though.
It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Forget it, move on.
Adam Nicholson at Adam Nick, I tend to avoid barrel aged beers. If I wanted to taste whiskey, rum, etc., I'd have a whiskey or rum. What do you think on that one?
It's a valid point, but not every barrel-aged beer tastes of whiskey or rum, does it?
No.
Because they barrel-age in wine barrels, don't they? I know Pinot Noir is quite a popular one these days.
They do.
And
Yeah.
I think it adds definitely a lot of richness, but I'm a very big Pinot Noir fan anyway, so... But I can see his point. Especially if you are a whiskey or rum fan, then it can seem like a bit of a pale imitation.
I'm a whiskey fan. I like it when there's that, you got that sort of... Because over this one, there is a bit of that sort of spirit kick that you get with that, and sort of all that whiskey kick, and I like that in a beer. And we had one previously. We've had a couple that have had sort of that whiskey kick on our podcast, and I've really enjoyed them because I'm a whiskey fan. And it's not sort of I can have it on its own, but I quite like it with a beer, and just adding that sort of bit of booziness to it. Yeah.
See,
So
to
for me,
me,
I like it.
the comment of if I wanted it to taste of whiskey/rum in this case, I never get that comment, because if I'm a fan of something and I pick it up in a beer, I'm never saying if I wanted the taste of whiskey and rum, I'd have a whiskey and rum. I'm excited to be tasting that. There was a beer not too long ago, I can't remember the brew exactly, but it had such a huge red wine taste to it, like ridiculously, like it was almost like you were just drinking a glass of red wine. And I was never thinking, if I wanted a glass of red wine, I'd have red wine. I was incredibly excited by this being this way. So it's a saying that I never really get. Like, if I wanted such and such, I'd have such and such. Personally, I don't know what.
I think for me, coming back particularly to Innis Gunn as well, they again when they were just starting out, they had their original, and then they released that they released a rum cask version, which was incredible.
Really smooth.
Yeah, and that was one of my first real introductions to a beer that had been aged in a barrel.
And you're not a spirits fan.
I'm not a spirits fan, but I do love a beer that's had a swig of spirits in it. I think it's great that they've gone back to producing beer that's as good as that isn't literally just being shown some wood chips to give it its flavour.
So shall we ask our dark beer expert?
Let's, who's been fairly quiet.
I have been quiet. No, I think
it's because he's been sitting there sipping his beer.
I have been sipping it, and it's a weird one. I think if it didn't have that little spirity kick and warmth at the end, I think I could be in a fair amount of trouble with that, if I'm honest. I think it's only that little warmth at the end that sort of gives me that reminder of, remember, this is strong. And I think, because otherwise...
He thinks this is strong.
Because without that, without that little warmth, it is really light, it is really smooth. There's no reason why I wouldn't just sort of take a sip, go back for the next one, go back for the next one,
on that point, say compared to the Surreal Stout, which was 6%, this doesn't feel like 5%
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's only that little sort of finishing note with a little bit of warmth that makes you think, oh yeah, just remember, there's something going on here. But no, that's really, really smooth.
And on the kind of subject of spirits as well, if you think Ashley hates dark beers, he hates vodka even more than that. If you talk about
hang on,
and spirits.
That's really unlikely for you.
I think that would make Ashley leave if you pulled out anything that was.
So we've not got a vodka aged beer next.
Although to be fair, you could try and leave, but security pass won't let him.
So while we're talking about it, because obviously beer doesn't just necessarily get barrel aged in. We see a lot of whiskey and bourbon.
Yeah, that's the popular
barrels.
ones: whiskey, bourbon, rum. But like I said, wine barrels.
Wine barrels.
They've started using wine barrels as well.
Particularly some of the stuff that goes on in Belgium. Some of the mixed fermentation stuff ends up in all sorts of barrels to produce that.
Almost doesn't matter.
Sour crap that you love.
Sour crap. May I remind you that our pilot show was Belgian beers that come out of wooden barrels.
Was it? Oh yeah, it was.
Yes.
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
The Petrus from the Wooden Foodies.
That sounds right up our alley, I think.
Sounds great.
They were nice.
Yeah. So just covering off a few more of these comments. So Miles Lambert at Miles Lambert. Yes, it does, but also no, it doesn't. For me, there are certain beers that I love when they've been barrel aged. Yellow Belly and Bearded Lady being two examples. However, they're not better than the originals, just different. And I like that difference. I mean, that's.
I hate it when Miles nails it.
No, Miles always nails it.
Wasn't it
That is why he is number one fan.
Wasn't it the last episode where someone's comment was just, I was going to comment, but Miles had already said
it was Bob.
Yeah.
Bob said, yeah.
That is it, isn't it?
Miles has said it already.
It perfectly encapsulates the sort of, it depends.
Although our transfer dealings, football terms, Colin Strong did reply as well.
He did.
Very simply, that depends very much on the beer in the barrel. That was it.
I think the two have got to work in unison, haven't they? So we have.
But it also has to be a good beer. I think
it's got to be a good.
A few other people said that as well.
Put a shit beer into barrels isn't going to make it a good beer.
You might just hide some of the shitness.
Yeah.
But it's still on its own. It should still be a good beer.
Yeah.
So whatever the base was, should still be a good beer.
I think somebody did say, I didn't put it on our notes, but somebody did say nobody's going to be chasing a barrel aged Doom Bar anytime soon.
But then didn't the bearded guy say I would?
Bearded guy said, and our lady said, people would, and I was going, maybe I would.
Yeah, I feel like,
and I'm thinking it would actually be better.
But there just has to be
can't be any worse.
Exactly, it would be better.
Let's be honest. Yeah,
I just feel like there has to be a point to it. You can't just barrel age it for the sake of doing it. If you had a dark beer and you thought, well, let's age it in a red wine barrel because we think it will bring out this, or as long as there's a point to it, then it's understandable. Whether it works or not is sort of a different question. But if the intention is we've got a clear idea of this is what we think will bring this out by aging in a Pinot Noir barrel or aging in a rum barrel, then I think that's fair enough. But you can't just take a dark beer and stick it in a Chardonnay barrel and say, well, we've aged it. aged in a barrel because it's just not going to work. And you've done it for the sake of doing it. There has to be a point to it.
I think very much so. Yeah, I think, and that's where it comes down again so often to the skill of the brewer. They've got to know what the original base beer tastes like and what characteristics it gives off, and which of those characteristics are going to work best with which barrel.
Yeah, it's the science.
Yeah.
So going back to what you were saying, actually, the science, the magic, you need to have a clear idea, or at least you think you know where it's going to end up. Not just, well, look, I've got this beer, let's chuck it in that. It should be.
People like barrel-aged beers, so let's stick it in
it doesn't
a barrel.
matter what barrel it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with that. I have to admit, I thought that was fantastic.
I really enjoyed that.
And we've all fairly much... This is, although Ashley's actually... This is the longest one he's spent, actually.
I think it's because we're getting into that territory where a little bit unsure.
Everything's just slowing down.
Namely Ashley.
Yeah. Everything in my brain is just slowing down a bit now.
I'm wondering whether we should just slow that down a little bit further.
I think you're going to, yeah.
I feel like
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the final beer that we've got to share with you this evening,
Not 11%.
not 11%.
You're so glad it's a final bit there.
This one's in a little wooden box.
Oh, that's
It's Brewdog.
Brewed, and this is Brewdog's Death or Glory.
Ooh.
It's going to be death, isn't it?
Isn't commercially available. You could only get this beer by investing so much in them and being the chief investor that week. So
I feel very special.
I feel so fucking privileged
I exploited a number of loopholes to get my hands on a few bottles. Let's be honest. Now, this is a barrel-aged beer that's been aged in 3 different casks. Ooh. However, it's also an ice bock. So what they've basically done is taken ice distilling and barrel aging to its absolute limit. This beer is... Where is it? There it is. 26.1%.
Oh my god.
Fuck me.
Yes! Was that my phone? I think that's I've got to take this, I'm sorry.
Which we feel has possibly topped anything that you may have had previously.
That is...
What do you mean? What they've had? I'm not sure. It tops everything we've had.
Is that a bicon?
This is the biggest beer that we've done on the show.
This is the Bilo.
Yeah.
Cheers. To blow your limbs off.
Cheers, guys.
It's even bigger than the hop shot that we did, which was 22%.
Yeah.
So this
Which
is
again was Brewdog.
Yeah, this is as far as we've gone. So this is
fairly
small measures on this one, mate. 'Cause it's only
and that is a
330
low-level spirit, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
effectively is what we've
Well,
got.
this is over a port.
Yeah.
So the background on this.
Shocked. It's like,
So this
I love the
started.
reaction.
This started life almost 5 years ago, and basically what they've done is they've looked to how they can blend barrel aging and freeze distilling of beer and take it to a new level. So it started life in 2011 as a hopped up Belgian golden ale, which was then freeze distilled. Obviously, all of the liquid removed from it, freezed again and again and again to get to its level. They then put it into 4 different whiskey casks. So it went into grain, Isle of Arran, and bourbon from Kentucky.
Was that at different times then? So did it go from one to
No,
the
it
other?
went into the 4 casks at the same time and then was blended
Oh.
together
yeah.
at the end.
So I thought it went from, like, hopped from one to the other. But what you're saying is that...
I don't know, actually. Sequestered it away in 3 different whiskey casks.
No, it does sound like
Which
they
is
put it all into...
possibly why it's got 3 different cask numbers on it.
And then they put it all back together again.
Yeah. So
Bloody hell.
final beer of the evening.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. It certainly will be the
I
final
am
beer of the evening.
absolutely terrified. I've just got to take the nose of that. And
Some nose on that.
my
Wow.
God.
Boo!
I can smell
That's like
wood.
when you smell a...
Wood.
Wood is what I'm getting straight away.
I'm actually getting.
Perfectly gets it on the
whiskey
I'm
sweetness.
getting a bit of an orange liqueur.
Yeah.
perfectly gets it on the
Yeah,
bottle. This
yeah.
die-hard mother has it all. I think that's that's
I mean,
summing it up.
to me, that's wood with a bit of Ronson.
I mean,
Can I just point to Ashley, never, if we ever do a podcast and Justin joins us, never swish a glass round like that. He'll tell you off.
Ooh.
Just go slowly round.
slowly round.
Yeah.
Because you're killing all the flavour.
You're
by
killing
it.
all
Pulling
the
the
flavour and the
bottle.
aroma.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
With this one, I did wonder.
That was the plan.
Right, okay.
Yeah, seriously,
There you
I
go.
just had this picture of Justin behind me going, "Oh!"
I almost can't stop smelling it. It's
It's an amazing.
I
aroma,
can't stop
isn't it?
smelling it because I'm really worried about
It's,
tasting it.
it's one
Right,
of
so
those
come on.
beers. There's one of those beers that's something in the smell that I
Can't
recognise, but I just
Oh, you
it's,
can.
it's
Let's do
there that I can't.
I said it's orange liqueur and wood is what I'm getting.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's like drinking a spirit. There's no life
Wow.
to it. That's all gone. But that's not a bad thing. When you're bearing in mind that we're drinking essentially an ice box.
It's not immediately beer, is it?
No. This has gone beyond beer.
Incredibly sharp. So
Yeah.
sharp.
Yeah. You're right, it just doesn't feel like a beer at all. It
No.
doesn't.
If,
It's like we're sipping on a.
It's
Like,
We're not gonna do it,
I'm
but-
getting that there's that fruity sort of. There's that oranges in there, but there's. Yeah, like just like a. Like
and
sipping
what
on
do
a
you say
whiskey
it
or
was?
something.
26.2.
26.1%.
26.1%.
we're not
So,
going
yeah,
to
we're
do it, but
way
it feels
past
like you should just
After dinner
get that
liqueurs.
down in one.
Yeah.
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 We're way past them. We're way
We're
past
almost
beer.
into brandy territory here.
Well,
aren't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're
It's certainly got that warmth.
Oh, you-
That's
you're-
brandy
Brandy in
warmth.
the drawing room.
and you're another 10% above wine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's still a beer.
Well,
There is a little bit of a burn at the end, but not much for 26%.
but it's what you'd expect on maybe something like this.
So the way they did the ice bottle bit, is this the same as the one when they did that world record for the strength of beer?
Yeah.
The same principle.
Yeah. So from what I understand is they brew the beer, they freeze it. So alcohol doesn't freeze.
Which
So-
is why they had to drop it to the depths of the ocean.
So when they've frozen it, what they then do is they take all the water out of it. So they take the ice out of it. So you're then left with the pure alcohol. They then freeze it again to take any more liquid out of it, and they keep doing that, and that's how they keep increasing the ABV on a beer, which essentially it started off as a beer.
Yeah.
There's nothing been added to it to stop it from being a beer. That's what they just keep freezing it and taking the water out. So what you're left with is essentially pure alcohol.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
What do you guys think, though?
It's incredibly heavy. Like as soon as it hits the chest, like after you've had it down, it's just wow. It's just
That warmth, that sort of fruity spiritness. I quite like it.
I quite like it.
like, yeah,
I
in small
quite like
doses.
it.
Yeah, I do
quite
like it.
as
It's
well.
just
But it's definitely
wow.
whatever beer we had 3 beers ago, which you said end of evening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is it.
This is end of night.
Ends your
me-
night, ends your week. It does you. That's it. Yeah.
It's
I am
whether
so
it's
glad I
supposed
booked off
to-
tomorrow.
Well, it's supposed to. Well, it's clearly not supposed to taste like a beer. It's just strange. It's just strange that it's put in a beer bottle and it's by a beer brewery and it's just not tasting like it. It's just
you
it's just
think
a
it-
strange sort of like.
Do you think in a blind tasting you'd spot it was a beer?
Never.
I don't think you would.
No,
I
not at
don't
all.
know.
It's-
It's-
not
I'd be
at
going
all.
some sort of strong liqueur.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
there's just it's so flat and it's so sharp
is.
and it's so warm that
It's so removed from what
It's
I know.
bordering
is
on
beer.
Yeah,
that brandy, isn't
that's
it?
it.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
you said, and I'd go for some sort of like strange brandy. If
I think
I'd
yeah,
done
if
that
you
blind
were
test.
absolutely pushed, you might say that it's a brandy or something with beer involved in the process. It's
Yeah.
almost like a sort of like Tom was saying, the whiskey aged in IPA barrels. You'd almost say like, is it a brandy that's been aged in a beer barrel in some way or something like that? Because there's sort of some identifiably beery type notes, but yeah, no, not in a million years.
Yeah,
Would
I
you-
mean,
would
look at
you
the way
say
it's
a beer?
lacing the glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that is a liqueur.
Yeah. I think there's none of that original Belgian golden ale in that.
No.
There's-
Oh God, no.
There's no Belgian characteristics to
No.
that.
But even
for-
with
for
that
me.
Glenfiddich IPA, you actually picked up a bit of hoppiness from it. Like, I picked up a bit more than my dad and brother-in-law did when we had it. But I think maybe it's because I was just drinking a few more beers than they were. But whereas this one, you just, like you say, if it was like a brandy in beer barrels, there's nothing about it. There's not even like a hoppiness to me or
No.
anything about it.
Well, it says on the
Real
side
residual sweetness.
hints of vanilla. Are you
No.
picking up any of that?
That's gone for me.
Yeah, that's totally
I mean, how
gone.
long have you had this, Steve?
2 years now.
It's possible the vanilla's
Maybe
dropped off.
3 years,
I'm getting real
actually.
residual sweetness at the end.
There is sweetness, yeah.
Real residual
Yeah.
sweetness
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah,
and that burn
It's-
is coming as well.
It's one of those where you think, you know, Brewdog have had it in casks for 5 years. I've had it in my cellar for 2. It may have already passed its best point.
Well, it depends what you're looking for in the best point. I think to have something like this, which you go, do you know what? It is a beer, but not as we know it.
Yeah.
By any stretch of anyone's imagination, this is not a beer as we know it. I think it's really quite fantastic.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty
it's-
special, isn't it?
yeah,
It's showing what barrel aging can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
To a beer.
and quite a big scientific process around that as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, it'd be really interesting to taste it at every point of that process, right from
Yes,
the original
absolutely,
beer
yeah.
through
Oh,
to
yeah.
now, to sort of see that development.
Especially that original.
Yeah, that original
Belgian
Belgian
golden.
golden.
Yeah.
Because you know, maybe tasting that original beer, maybe you do start to pick
Yeah.
up little hints of it in there. But yeah, I mean that's it's great in a really weird way.
Yeah, like it or
Really
not,
weird
like
way.
it or not, this is a beer you're gonna remember. This is certainly, especially for us as well.
I'll remember it at work tomorrow morning.
Yeah, just for clarity, Ashley's going to work tomorrow. So whenever you heard this, he's probably still recovering from that.
I will be.
I just think it's great that we actually have the chance to have these kind of beers.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, so it's a nice way to finish this exploration through dark and barrel aged beers as well.
Yeah.
Although this is the least dark of all the beers we've had.
It is, but it's probably the most barrel aged.
It's the most barrel aged. It's
Certainly.
definitely not just the most potent in terms of ABV, but just flavour.
Yeah.
Just bags going
Yeah.
on. None of it's beer.
None of it's beer.
Bags of flavour, and yet what it says on the side with the vanilla and the coffee, you're not really picking it
No.
up in a
I
sense.
just wonder that's just because it's gone so far down.
Yeah,
now.
because it's gone so far down. Yeah.
Burnt sugar, coated fruit, hints of vanilla, roasted nuts, coffee, and maple syrup.
I reckon it's the syrup, burnt
I get more
sugars.
syrup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
sweet stuff that's
Yeah.
still in there.
The top,
Everything
the
else
top
is
of the
gone.
tail, yes. The bit in the middle,
Yeah.
not really.
Exactly.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, thank
Cheers.
you very
Cheers,
much.
cheers,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you
Cheers.
for sharing with me. So that brings us to a nice end, actually. Guys, where can people find you to listen to your shows? Because
Go on, Mark.
to be fair, if any of our listeners aren't listening to you, I'm ashamed on their behalf that they're not already listening to you.
Well, we know
because,
that you and a
because we are big fans of what you do. So,
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
so where can people find you?
Well, you can find us on SoundCloud if you search for Men Beerhaving Badly, not Men Behaving Badly, as I know some people do. You can subscribe to us on iTunes as well. Again, if you just search Men Beerhaving Badly, we will come up. We're on Twitter at MBB Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, again, under Men Beerhaving Badly. And we're on Instagram as well, which is under...
I think that's Men Behaving Badly as well.
That's Men Behaving Badly as well.
Yep.
So yeah, just search us out on there, and that's where you can find all of our episodes so far, including our 20th one coming up soon with you guys.
Brilliant, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well,
Yeah.
so people.
and give them a listen. Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Go back to a couple of them, especially the Christmas one.
15.5.
Yeah,
definitely
Listen to it.
Yeah,
a real highlight.
for Tom, really listen
Yeah.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and as always, if people want to get involved in what we've been doing tonight, use the hashtag Hopinions, and we will
Yeah,
find
Matt.
it and
Remember
share
the
it.
hashtag opinions.
Yes, because that's what you need to use. Next week, do you know what we're doing?
No.
Okay, never know what we're doing, do you? So next week we've teamed up with Beerbods, and we are
that'd
going to be reviewing their ones to watch box. So that's 12 beers.
Oh, we're good at ones to watch.
Yeah, 12 beers in one show, mate. How
Yeah.
are you feeling about that?
Well, fortunately, we may have some special guests.
We are drafting in some guests to help us with that.
Because
How-
even for us, 12 beers in one show.
That's ambitious. That's you're never getting that under 3 hours. Let's be honest. But if you want to get involved in that, head over to beerbods.co.uk. Order your ones to watch box, and if you use the code BeerO'Clock18, you'll get 10% off of that as well. So you can drink along with us.
Yeah, and I've had all the previous ones to watch boxes, and they put some good stuff in there.
They do, and generally they are bang on with their ones to watch as well. So
almost as bang on as we are.
In previous, absolutely, which we've not even mentioned tonight. We'll come on to that next week. But yeah, I think last year they had Daya in there, didn't they? So yeah, they're always pretty bang on. So yeah, we'll be back next week with that. We're going to finish our I'm going to finish my Brewdog, not beer.
Finished over this one.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.